Welcome back to another episode of Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. This is the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and just all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan LoPresti, and today I'd like for you to meet Dr. Amy Behimer, a doctor of pharmacy, nationally board certified health and wellness coach, and certified life coach who brings both professional expertise and deeply personal experience to her work. Living with multiple sclerosis, Dr. Amy understands firsthand the challenges of navigating life with an autoimmune condition. Rather than letting her diagnosis define her, she has used it as a catalyst to create a healthier, a more intentional way of living, one rooted in resilience, self compassion, and sustainable habits. Driven by her own journey, Dr. Amy is on a mission to help others with autoimmune disease to feel their best and reclaim a sense of vitality and joy. She believes that despite the diagnosis, it is absolutely possible to cultivate a life where health and happiness become daily practices and not distant goals. After searching for support that truly resonated and finding it lacking, Dr. Amy created what she wished existed, a space and a pathway for others to feel empowered, supported, and capable of making lasting change. Her message is simple, yet very powerful. No matter your health challenges, you deserve to feel good in your body and in your life. And she's here to help guide the way. So without further ado, Dr. Amy, welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited for us to have this conversation today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Amy, let's start and take us back to your diagnosis with multiple sclerosis. What was going through your mind at that moment when you got that diagnosis?
I know it pretty vividly and pretty well because it was I've heard this term before and I borrowed it, a life quake. That
Uh,
moment where something happens and everything feels a little different after that. And so I've had several, but the diagnosis of MS, I was 27. I was very healthy. If you looked at me, you would say, yeah, she's the picture of health. She's active. I did have a few other autoimmune diagnoses at the time. So if you peeled inside my brain, my mental health was getting a little shaky because I kept thinking something is not right. And when I got the diagnosis, my education as a pharmacist instilled in me some scary words about the diagnosis. It's chronic, it's progressive, it's disabling, it's neurodegenerative. And so, knowing that side of things, I was devastated. I was fearful. I really, looking back, believed my life would always be a little bit worse with this diagnosis. I could do the best I could, but this cloud would be over me from here on out. And like I said, I know that moment well because I've used it, and it is what really shifted the direction and the focus of my life's work and absolutely my health, which I'm sure we will get into.
Yeah. So I want to get into what is multiple sclerosis? What were your early signs that something was not right? And what are some of the symptoms that you get?
Sure. MS is the short name for multiple sclerosis, and it is in a group of diseases that are called autoimmune diseases. And so I would be surprised statistically if you're listening and you haven't heard of an autoimmune disease. The numbers are rising, and there's a lot of fear around it because people are getting diagnosed earlier and earlier as well. So even kids showing up with these diseases, and it's linked quite a bit to the the modern world. There's of course a piece that lives in our genes, but there's a good hunch that a lot of it has to do with our environment and our lifestyle. MS specifically, with autoimmune diseases, essentially our immune system, which is there to protect us, it is there to keep us safe. It gets its wires crossed and it thinks that some of our native tissue is foreign. And so it does what it thinks is helping and starts attacking it. What's so wild about autoimmune disease is that it can happen in any tissue. And so depending what the end organ is that is tied up in this confusion, that's what determines the diagnosis. So the most common that most people probably have heard of, and likely some have, is in our thyroid. That's called
Yeah,
Hashimoto's.
I
Um,
have it.
there we go.
Yeah,
In our joints would be rheumatoid arthritis. In
yeah.
our pancreas is type 1 diabetes. And in our nervous system, it is multiple sclerosis. So my
Oh,
body thinks that the coating of my nerves that help with a smooth conduction out from my central nervous system out to my limbs, it thinks that it's foreign. So it starts to eat away at it. And so you can have a plethora of symptoms, but oftentimes changes in vision, changes in ability to move your limbs or to walk. And with me, I was a runner. So
mhm.
I started at long distance running, getting this drop foot, this inability to pick up my right foot. And it started happening sooner and sooner, and it started taking longer and longer to recover. That was the first symptom. And sadly, I'm not the only one. A lot of people, it takes a while to get a diagnosis because it can look like a lot of things, and there's a lot of crossover. And so it really takes sticking with what you feel is going on and being heard and being an advocate for yourself.
Yeah. So how did your life shift physically, emotionally, mentally after receiving this diagnosis?
The physical parts were not that much different. So my flavor of MS is not one that overnight I had a sharp change in my function. So physically, it's been almost 15 years and I do have changes. I have differences in my gait and various things, but immediately my mental and my emotional health was rocky because I had this looming fear of what could happen, what could go wrong, and a feeling of lack of control that this is happening in my body and there's nothing I can do about it. That was the first belief that I mentioned of just where that fear was coming from.
Yeah, yeah. It's terrible, frightening diagnosis. As a doctor of pharmacy, did your medical background help you or did it make the experience even more overwhelming?
In the end, and even now, it helps me to have the literacy of the healthcare system
Yeah.
is something that I wish I could gift for everybody. I feel like most families have that person in healthcare that they go to and advocate for them, but it really did help me because I felt like I could make a decision about medications that were from a place of being very educated. I hear so many times from people who are diagnosed and they feel, okay, I don't want to take these meds. And I ask why. And sometimes it's based off misinformation. There can be a lot out there in the narrative that isn't necessarily true. So I felt like my ability to understand research, to understand what is clickbait stuff and what is real research was really helpful.
Yeah.
And the space ultimately where I ended up shifting to help people is really at that intersection because it's not as if I ever use my pharmacist skills or license to help somebody who's been diagnosed, but it's more to shine a light that we don't have to choose between a natural approach and an approach that may include Western medicine. Instead, it's about how can these things synergize each other and how can we give ourselves the best chance to have a life that we feel good and function at our best. Because with any autoimmune diagnosis, it impacts how we feel. Again, whether it's daily symptoms or just that impending doom that could happen if it goes unexamined, but it also can impact how we function. And so, thankfully, the things that you talk about here and the mind, body, soul of I use that approach with habits, they're the same things that help us feel and function better. So we don't have to choose which one our end goal is.
Yeah. So was there a moment when you realized that conventional approaches just weren't enough for you?
Yeah, so pretty immediately there is a group of medications for MS and many autoimmune diseases that are called disease modifying therapy. So they have some pretty good research that they could impact the progression or the course of the disease. So I quickly accepted, weighed my risk and benefits, and decided this is it. But I call that my defense. I call that's running on in the background, hopefully doing what it's proven to do to help with the future progression of the disease. I
Right.
call my lifestyle and my habits my offense. So let's say we are at the doctor's office, whether it's getting a medication or getting labs drawn 10 days a year. That left a whole lot of days, 355 days a year, that I was like, I want to be doing something. I want to be, again, taking back some of that control that I felt like was lost. And so it wasn't as if conventional medicine, there was any issue with it. Like I said, I like to be very forthcoming that I do choose to take that medication. But I knew I also wanted to be doing my part. And so that's really where this shift came from, is that I'm going to show up and learn what it is I can do and make sure that I'm doing my part to give myself the best possible future.
So, what are you doing that is aside from the medication that has helped you?
I like I said, this has been almost a 15-year journey.
Yeah.
And so now coming to you, it's nice because I have sorted through a lot of the fumbling around to figure out what is it that we can control in a disease and a diagnosis that has some uncontrollables. And so there are six key areas of our lifestyle that they're not things that you haven't heard before, which is the good news. The difference is what I had to do for me was put it in context using a framework so that I could understand how they all fit together. One of the hard lessons I learned at the beginning was, if most people listening, they're like, okay, we can change our food. Food is an obvious thing and where most people enter into this world. I was so hyper focused on food that these other areas of my lifestyle started to almost get worse because of my hyper focus on food. So it was really learning not only what these six key areas are, which I'll happily go through, but it was about how they play into each other and how they lift each other up, and how the balance between them is really how we can learn to enjoy the process of health and not feel like we are just trying to keep up with all the things that in social media or different influencers are saying this is healthy, that is healthy. The
It's
number one emotion,
overwhelming.
I was just going to say, the number one emotion that people come to me in when they're
Yeah.
finally ready to do something is they're overwhelmed, they're
Yes.
confused, and they feel like they're doing something wrong, because it just sets us up for failure if it were trying to do it all, especially all at once. So, really having this framework and ensuring that we don't neglect any of the areas has been such a key in my current state of health, which includes physical, mental, and absolutely emotional.
Wow. So, give us the six pillars that you focus on.
Sure. The first one is mindset.
Okay.
It is its own pillar, but it is also infused into everything we do, because how we think and how we feel impacts how we function. Hands down, we can't out eat a shitty mindset. Pardon my French, but we can't outnourish a shitty mindset, is what I always said. And when you are handed a diagnosis that does have some uncertainty and does have some very real ups and downs, learning how to manage our mind and learning how to really gain perspective is everything. That's what changed my world. Like I said, I could eat all the right things, I could exercise to the best of my ability, make sure I'm getting this amount of sleep. But if we're doing all those things without the thoughts and feelings behind them that are nourishing and fueling us, if we're doing them out of a place of punishment, then they're just not going to land the same. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, so I can't speak enough about mindset. It's often, I talk about, of course, all these other areas, which we'll get to. I think of often, okay, maybe I just only want to work on mindset. But the truth is, a lot of us come into this work through the food or through the exercise or through needing to deal with their stress. And then in the back door, we are going to work on mindset to do it. I really do offer and help people with all these different areas. I call the mindset the inner habits, right? So these are the the ones that maybe people can't see, but how we're thinking and feeling, those are habits too. Those are habitual that we are just comfortable in. And so I talk about the inner habits and then the outer habits, which are the more obvious ones that bring most of us to this work.
So, what approach to mindset? Is it meditation? What do you suggest to
That's
get
a
someone into a better frame of mind and look at this from, it's hard to say a positive perspective, but you really need to, in some way, have a
yeah.
positive attitude.
Yeah, that's a great point of one difference about the way I approach mindset is recognizing we are not trying to shift to just a positive mindset and thoughts and thinking. We are trying to better reflect nature and reality that life is 50-50. Life has ups, life has downs, life has positive, life has negatives, just
Mhm.
like nature, day and night.
Yeah,
And so a lot of times for people, they take a deep breath when I say, we are not going to try to eliminate the things that feel hard and the things that feel negative. When we first start, we're just trying to provide some balance and let in some of the positive so that we can overcome the very real negativity bias that we as humans suffer from. And so that's just a start that we are looking for balance. We are trying to add light in a place that feels dark. My approach is fairly simple. A mindset is, I like to define it as a collection of our thoughts, right? It is, we have 60,000 plus a day, and most of them are crappy. Most of them are recycled from yesterday,
yeah,
and most of them are under our conscious radar. So to think of taking on this big lift of let's change our mindset, that feels huge, that feels scary, and it feels almost impossible. So instead, we change our mindset one thought at a time, one conscious thought at a time. And just if we want to build stronger biceps, we do repetitions. We understand that when it comes to our physical muscles.
yeah,
But when we find those thoughts that we would like to practice, that we would like to have be more habitual than the ones that are causing the doom and gloom, we practice them. I call it a belief seed that we plant. We plant the seed that in my first belief seed, if we go back to that first thought that had me feeling doom, it was, my life will never be as good now. The belief seed that I planted was, Amy, it's possible that maybe my life can still be pretty good. From that place of curiosity and hope, nurturing that and fertilizing it with my attention, finding evidence in the world where life still could be good, what you start to notice is we can create new habits in our thinking. And
mhm,
so we use a lot of the same habit research because there is amazing research out there on how to make new habits, but not enough people are talking about the fact that we can use that research to our thinking habits as well as our feeling habits.
wow. And that changes the entire perspective on things.
All of it, all of it.
Yeah,
One that is so big for everybody that we may not even realize. For example, let's say you're wanting to exercise more, or you're wanting to change your diet in some way, or the other lifestyle shifts. If it feels tough, you always hear this version of just try a smaller habit, a tiny habit, or the 2-minute rule. The reason that many of us don't actually follow through on that is because there's a word missing in that. And what I offer, there's a playbook of habit strategy that exists where we pull a lot of this research together, but the play from the playbook is called trust in the tiny. And so the mindset piece that comes in here is if we truly believed and thought that the tiny actions would get us where we want to go, if we trusted it, chances are we'd be doing it. We would do that 2-minute meditation. We would worry about just adding one vegetable at a time. We would actually be doing things very different if we trusted that tiny steps will get us there.
yeah. Wow. It really is all about mindset.
Yeah,
What's another pillar that is part of this process?
yeah, so food. We are feeding ourselves. These bodies are turning over all the time. So let's give it good energy in, good energy out. Is there a perfect diet for everybody? Of course not. Absolutely not. It's really about finding your feel good food protocol, is what I call it. And again, it's not prescriptive, it's really created by you, and you end up loving it and feeling good when you can actually follow through on what you want to be doing. Some people feel like, I don't know what to eat. And I'll say, okay, even if you learned nothing else, what are three things that you know would help you feel better if you changed them up? I've never met someone who doesn't have three things immediately that they
Right.
know. Maybe less sugar, maybe I want to be eating less ultra processed foods, or I want to drink more water or eat vegetables. That's the ABC. That is where we start. And don't even worry about the other stuff until you really nail the basics. And so again, it comes back to it's less about what we're doing and more about building this skill of changing habits in a way that feels good. So number three is movement. So these bodies were made to move. And again, there's no perfect way to move, but we know that if we were moving in the way that we want to and as often as we want to, chances are we'd all feel a whole lot better and feel more in control. Number four addresses rest and relaxation. So it is really less about how do I stop stressing and more about how do I build in more restful habits? How do I really get my body to that place where it feels safe and recharges? And of course, sleep is incorporated in that as well. So those are three, the sleep, the movement, and the food are the three really foundational keystone habits that really help humans thrive. Number five is connection. Relationships,
Yeah.
time and time again, have proven to help people. And I love to think of them as habitual, right? So it can be very easy to say, oh, yeah, my relationships are good. But what if we put the same intention behind them to really foster intentional connection with the people that we love can really take it to a whole new level. And the last one is what I call good stress. And the good stress, and I put quotes around good
Yeah.
stress implies that having a goal, setting a challenge at different seasons in our life can be just what the doctor ordered, so to speak. We
Right.
understand it physically that we have to go through tough things to build muscle. We break down our muscle and we get sore. But in those other areas, always having a goal and using it to grow and change is something that just contributes well to health and happiness.
So these six pillars, how have they improved your life personally and
So I,
improved your maybe symptoms?
yeah, the I just live these pillars deeply now. The
Mhm.
mindset has really changed how I think and feel every single day, which
Yeah.
has changed what I do. So if you had to rip every pillar away from me, I would keep the mindset one because having a mindset that can show up how I want to show up in the face of uncertainty is just something that I treasure. Food, my energy is this is blasphemy and most people can't relate to it, but I don't get fatigued. Fatigue can be so common, but it doesn't mean it's normal. And so I really believe that when I pour my love into and attention into feeding my body good things, moving my body, resting, again, connections, relationships, challenges, and mindset, it adds up to a life where is it perfect? Do I have symptoms? Yes, I have symptoms. No, it's not perfect. Is my diet quote unquote perfect? No. Do I still have struggles with certain changes and do I still sometimes not meet goals? Yeah, sometimes, but it's more about the process of deciding ahead of time what would I like to see happen? How do I want to show up? And then actually showing up for myself because at the end of the day, that's what I want is to be a woman of my word for myself. So if I say I want to do something, having the skill to figure out how to do it again so that I can know that I'm doing my part.
Yeah. So, Amy, how has your diet changed? What did you incorporate? What did you eliminate? And what changes did you see?
I'm a big fat experiment. So I have spent 2 years as a vegan. I've spent many years paleo. I've spent many years gluten-free, dairy-free. And in the end, now the way I eat is called the feel good food protocol, right? So It's different for all of us, but for the most part, it's a insane amount of vegetables. I'm talking 10, 15 cups. I eat a lot of vegetables.
Wow, 10, 15 cups a day.
Yes, and that came out of necessity because I have slow bowels. And so again, it's really tuning into what roughage I need. My body also thrives on meat. I say that I'm from the Midwest, so I do try to eat high quality meat. I love treating smash fish, the good salmons and mackerels and sardines,
Mm.
anchovies and herring. I love those. I treat it like a pill, right? So I take three to four doses a week. And so I make sure that I eat those for those good omega-3s and protein. My gut loves when I sip on bone broth. I love fermented foods are definitely in my protocol. I do not eat gluten and I do not eat dairy, and that does well for my body. And when I met my husband, he's celiac, and he thought he was delivering bad news on our first date that, that you couldn't have gluten. I said, I don't either. And I think that he fell in love with me instantly. So our house is a
You had him beat.
I did. So our house has no gluten, and I promise nobody misses it when we cook.
Yeah, no.
Um, yeah. Do I have my things that I overindulge on? I am a sucker for small, crunchy things in bags, is what I call them. So I'm often using a lot of my habit strategy to keep that in check, that salty, crunchy, as they make the quote unquote healthy versions of a lot of these things that kind of bring some of these foods back on the table. But anything in excess, I think we all can attest, it doesn't feel too good. So many of my clients are the same, where they've done such a good job kind of changing the ingredients they eat, but then these newer processed foods still end up sneaking back in. I call it the ultra processed food creep,
Yeah.
where you have a little here, a little there, and then before you know it, it's eating a few too many of them. And my sweet tooth can get out of control from time to time too.
When I was health coaching, I would tell my clients, just walk the perimeter of the supermarket. Don't go up and down the aisles.
Yeah.
Whatever you could buy along the perimeter is the best thing for you. Now,
Yeah.
what led you to expand into health coaching and life coaching?
Yeah, so I wanted to go back to school. I'm a lifelong learner. I was looking into becoming a functional medicine practitioner.
Oh,
So I was learning so much about it for myself, right? I really wanted to get to the root of what was going on. And when I was looking, I thought, I already have this pharmacist hat that I get to be the expert. I get to say, this is what the guidelines say and give recommendations. But what I didn't have was I want to actually get in the get in it with people and say, if you want to make a change but it feels hard, why is that? And I was naturally good at that. I was naturally good at figuring out, what does research say for why this is hard, or what strategies could we use? And so I'm so grateful. Before I joined the Institute for Functional Medicine's practitioner program, I saw that they started a coaching program. And I thought, oh, this could be different and exactly what I want and need. So I started down that path, and they started a board certification, a national board certification for health and wellness coaching. And the pharmacist in me loves racking up those degrees and certifications. And so it just became the love of my life to really help people, not by being the expert telling them what they should do, but helping them discover what they want to do. That's all I care about. Are you doing what you want to be doing? And of course, we can use the science in terms of what foods are going to give us our good chance and what do we know. But really, at the end of the day, if everybody was just following through on the things they knew that they wanted to be doing, we would be a whole lot healthier and a whole lot happier, I
yes.
believe.
Now, are your clients who have autoimmune conditions?
Most everyone does. I really do speak to autoimmunity. My podcast is called Autoimmune Health Secrets.
Oh, I have to
Um,
listen because I have Hashimoto's and celiac disease.
oh, there you go. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'd love it. But I do have clients who join. I have a membership that they don't have a diagnosis, but they just either have antibodies or they either have family members that have a diagnosis. So I would never say no to any human being that wanted to do this work together. But
yeah.
most everybody does have a diagnosis. And I think we represent about 12 to 14 diagnoses in the group. So it's so much less about what the diagnosis is. There's definitely a shared camaraderie between certain symptoms that happens across all diagnoses. But at the end of the day, we're humans, again, who have this diagnosis that brings with it a certain level of fatigue, a certain level of uncertainty, and that binds us, that we
Yeah.
are here and wanting to do what we can to, again, improve our habits and our health and our happiness.
So, how do you help women to shift from fear and frustration into empowerment, really?
Yeah, so we really can break that down. That fear and frustration is habitual, right? So
Yeah.
before we recognize that feelings are under more of our control than we think, it's comfortable for our bodies to stay in that fear. Even though it's uncomfortable to be there, it's
Yeah.
what the body knows. So it really starts with what is a thought or a belief that helps me feel empowered? Mine was, you know what, Amy, there's things you can do to change your future. Or it's possible that this doesn't need to mean that your life is worse or your health is worse. Those were empowering thoughts. But learning how to take just a flash of a thought and make it habitual, make it your belief. That's what I help you do is show up and practice and nurture it. And again, using the habit science to actually shift our mindset to one that has us feeling more useful emotions.
That makes a lot of sense. What are some common mistakes that you see women making when trying to improve their health with autoimmune conditions?
I think the same ones that I did at first, only looking at food, kind of
Yeah,
thinking that we can find a perfect diet out there, expecting perfection of themselves, thinking that changes need to be drastic versus really recognizing that health is an infinite game. We are not here to win it, we are here to keep playing it. And so if you're doing anything that feels like you're just trying to get the end of 30 days or it doesn't feel like something you want to be doing long term, then most likely we're going to revert right back to where we were. So really not changing in a way that feels good, I think is the biggest
yeah,
mistake because that's how I think a marker of how we're doing it right is that we feel like we're loving ourselves deeper, we're understanding ourselves deeper, and we're trusting ourselves deeper. That's when we know that I think we're onto something.
what about flare-ups? Do you experience flare-ups, and does stress or emotional health play a role in that at all?
Absolutely. For the most part, personally, I don't have, depends how you define a flare up. I have some good days, I have some bad days. Mine looks like some physical wonkiness that can happen with my gait if something's not going right in my immune system, but they're minimal. I would say that's also a little bit skewed because my mindset behind them over the years has changed so much. So when I used to have it, it would be compounded by the stress that they were happening, which would then lead to further symptoms versus being able to look at it and really see it for what it is of a part of this journey and something that I will get through. And I have a whole lot of evidence for getting through it. And your second question, yes, stress causes autoimmune conditions and flare ups, and it's an effect of the disease as well. So, stress, if that feels like something that is just inevitable in your life, that's something to look at. I think that's a beautiful place to start.
So
Is
stress is a cause for the autoimmune?
a lot of,
Believe that.
yeah, a lot of people get their diagnosis after a stressful life event.
Yes.
And again, when you have a diagnosis and symptoms, it's pretty darn stressful. So,
Yes, it is overwhelming.
it can be overwhelming. And but just like that loop could be what you would call a vicious loop or a downward spiral, the good news is that same momentum that could pull us down, when we can have these tiny shifts, back to trust in the tiny, when we can have these tiny shifts and start to see the evidence of what else is possible, that spiral can go upward. That we can start to accumulate benefits that gives us momentum going the other direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That makes total sense. So, Amy, where can our listeners find you if anyone wants to get involved in your program or learn more about you?
Sure. We all are in our email inbox. So, a beautiful place to know what's going on and get in touch is email. And the best way to do that is I have a free quiz. And the free quiz is 7 questions. It takes probably 3 minutes or less. And it asks you about you so that you can land in one of these 6 key areas. Your result will tell you, where should I start? There's so many different things I could be doing, but should I work on my mindset? Should I work on my food? Should I get this stress under control? And the quiz is designed to help give you that answer. So when you get the result, I will be in your inbox to help you sort through what that could look like and how to do it. But I'm always just a reply away. It's just me. So if you want to answer, say hello, tell me that this is where you heard me, that's a great place to get in touch. And I can share information as well about the podcast and the membership and all that.
Yeah, I will put all of that information in the show notes for
Great.
sure. Final thoughts that you can leave the listeners with?
I to I've been asked this a time or two. What's the difference between people who seem to focus more again on the positive than the negative, or they seem to be, you hear this a lot in autoimmunity, like thriving with autoimmune disease. And I think for me, and so I can only offer what I know works because it worked for me, was trying something different. So I think that if something feels tough, it can be nerve-wracking to try something different. And the first couple years I had a coach, a mindset coach, really learning some of this over 10 years ago. I would hide it from people. I would be like, they would say, "How are you so well adjusted?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't know, therapy." And so finally, I'm like, I'm contributing to the stigma. People think
Yes.
that coaching means that they just didn't cut it or something went wrong. And
Yeah.
I thought, I am done with that. So I proudly say that coaches need coaches and coaching can really help. So if, something speaks to you or you just want something to be different, then the courage to try something different to get a different result. I know that I wish someone would have said that to me all those years ago, so I could have cut out a couple years
Yes.
of misery, but it is really finding a good fit too. I think that really leaning into people and spaces, whoever that is, where you feel some of these empowered things is a great place to start.
Yeah. And now you're equipped to help women who come to you that they were just recently diagnosed Hashimoto's, celiac, whatever. There's so many different autoimmune diseases
Yeah,
out there. Out of something bad, something good always comes of it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it is. Yeah, but you got to go looking for it
Yes.
because otherwise it will just stay hidden.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Amy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us
thank
today. I
you.
appreciate you coming on. I wish you the best of everything. Continue to stay well and continue to help other women to thrive as well. Thank you.
Right back at you. Thank you for all you do. And yeah, I bless you with all the same health and happiness.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. And that, my friends, was a beautiful conversation with Amy. I hope today's episode reminded you that a diagnosis does not define you, and that even when life takes an unexpected turn, there is always a path forward. Amy's journey is such a powerful example of resilience, self discovery, and what it truly means to take your health into your own hands with compassion and also intention. So, if you're navigating an autoimmune condition or any health challenge, I hope you're walking away from this conversation feeling a little bit more hopeful, a little more empowered, and inspired to begin creating habits that support not just your body, but your mind and your soul as well. Remember, healing isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about awareness and learning to listen to your body in a deeper way. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend who may need to hear this message today. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of Susan LoPresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. Thank you for being here with me, and I'll see you next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, take care of yourself and continue to heal, rejuvenate, and thrive.